All right. Today on the show, I have Kaden Love, the author of Toothsucker, one of the coolest covers I have ever seen. I don't know if you have that book nearby to show
Yeah,
show the crowd. Okay, cool.
there's that.
Yes. I love that cover. And then you actually have a second one I saw online, which is part of the reason I wanted to have you on.
Yep, book two's right there, and then my wife is also my cover artist. She's working on book three's cover right now, and it's with my editor. So be dropping that this year sometime.
Dang. How do you have a certain number of books in your head for the series, or is it like I can just keep writing as long as there's a new adventure?
So there is like kind of an endpoint set up. And originally I was like, I think the plan still kind of is five. That's what I told people when I was writing book three. But now that I'm looking at it, I'm like, maybe six. It's not gonna just go on forever, but kind of like how like Christopher Rocchio with Sun Eater, I know he planned on five books and then did seven. Just when he got to that point, there was more story to tell, and that's kind of how I'm feeling. I don't think I'm gonna get ready for Endgame during book four, so I think it'll probably be like six, maybe seven, maybe it'll just be five. I don't know.
Okay. Does it feel daunting or exciting that you have enough ideas to expand the amount
I
of
think,
books?
yeah, I think it's really exciting. I still need to write the third book in my fantasy trilogy, and that one's it's nice to just kind of wrap that up. But Toothsucker's one that I just love writing more of it, and cyberpunk is like it's like my favorite genre to write. It's just so much fun, and it's if it's the point where it ever explodes, I would love to do just more in the world. Like it'd be fun to try a storyline in it that's completely comedy. Find fun to do one that's completely horror, just because there's so many weird things that I can do in it.
Okay. Yeah, cyberpunk is a cool genre in that because you are mixing sort of the like very eccentric aesthetic of of sci-fi, like taking it just to a very extreme, which is where the punk comes in. So I feel like it opens itself up a lot more than sci-fi for humor or horror or different things.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
So your fantasy series, do you have one of those nearby? Because I was going
Uh-huh.
to say it's such a different book. Like you
Yeah.
look at Toothsucker, and then because I remember the fantasy one was first, because I
Yeah, so
remember
this is my
seeing that
first.
one. Yeah.
This was my debut, Elegy of a Fragmented Vineyard. This came out, it was 2 years ago in January, and then I released Toothsucker and Duet of Pernicious Seals, the second one. I released these both last year. Um, and I still really like the fantasy, but there are some reasons why I've kind of focused more on Toothsucker as of late, because as an author, it's kind of how I am as a reader. I am very much a mood. If I'm in a sci-fi mood, I'm going to read a sci-fi book. And I was just very much in a cyberpunk mood, sci-fi mood, and Two Sucker's been selling a lot better. It's an easier entry point, and it's one that's getting a lot of people excited. So I'm like, lean into that. And I've written maybe 50K in the third of my fantasy series, and it's just one of those where I would love to finish it off sometime soon, but I kind of need the motivation of like that people actually want it.
Yeah. Yeah, that does make a big difference as if readers are asking for it. So,
Uh-huh.
um, okay, so the cyberpunk mood. I see the Mewtwo shirt. What
Oh
are
yeah.
some of the what are some of the influences on Toothsucker when you put it together?
Uh-huh. So it's funny to look back when I first started. I was in college in a creative writing class, and I had to do a short story. So Toothsucker originally was a short story, and it was set in dark fantasy times. Very, very big into dark fantasy at that time. And I started writing Toothsucker as a dark fantasy story, kind of inspired by like Dark Souls, Elden Ring, Berserk, those kind of things, and got a couple of chapters in, and then I just got in such a cyberpunk mood, mostly because of Cyberpunk Edge Runners, and I just wanted to experiment with it. Like it was really weird to take an idea that was completely dark fantasy and just make it sci-fi, and it worked. And Um, so that I would say Cyberpunk Edge Runners was the number one inspiration. I kind of love the anime aesthetic to put it in books like that. Definitely you can kind of see it with the battles and the stories and stuff. And like without spoiling things, I love the kind of the tragic side, like romance and also like human tragedy and things like that. And putting that in a single season of an anime was just super inspirational for writing this.
Okay. I can understand that because I know that the overall aesthetic of that video game when they used it in manga and everything else, the art designers who did like the font and the look and all that, they did a really, really good job, even though the game was a little busted.
Hmm.
So much so I ended up buying, they had like an art book of it, and I bought the art book because I just thought the style that they put together was really, really cool. So I'm
Hmm.
not surprised that was a big inspiration for you. And you finished the whole show?
Yeah, so I finished the show. I mean, the show's 10 episodes. And I actually watched that prior to playing the game. I got the game last year, and this is, after it'd been fixed and everything.
Yeah.
Um, but like anime and manga, I'm a huge manga reader, and those have really influenced my things. So, like book one, very much just Cyberpunk Edge Runners. Book two, at that time, I was reading a lot of Naoki Urasawa, who wrote Monster, 20th Century Boys, and Billy Bat, one of his that's finally being translated into English. Um, Major inspiration, just because that one he uses a lot of like connecting conspiracy theories and stuff like that. And I think that conspiracy theories are so much fun in it. And then book three that I just finished, I was reading Chainsaw Man prior to writing that. And just, I love taking kind of my books to the extreme side of Unhinged to really surprise readers. And that one was a big inspiration for that. So each of them kind of had their things, and there's little parts in them where I kind of pay tribute to things that inspired it.
Okay. Well, I'm glad that you read Urasawa because I don't think enough people that read manga do.
Hmm.
And his stuff is like way above what most people are reading, to be honest, as far as the quality. It's so good.
Yeah, it's like he is one of my favorite writers ever. Um, and anyone that is hesitant to get into manga because they might think it's a little goofy, or I don't know, like even you look at ones like One Piece is one of my favorite things ever, but it does get kind of goofy at times.
Yeah.
Earthfall was just very dry, like straightforward thrillers, and some of the best stories out there. Like I think that if Monster were to be made into a live action, it would explode everywhere because everybody just loves kind of like crime stories and stuff like that, and that is one of the best ones ever written.
They were looking at Guillermo del Toro was
Hmm.
looking at doing Monster on HBO probably in 2014,
Hmm.
2013. But it never materialized,
Yeah.
unfortunately. But I was really hoping that was going to be the case because it's so, so good. If you like his stuff, there's a story called Pluto. Have you read that one?
Yeah, so that's actually the only one I haven't read, but I've seen the
Oh, so
anime,
good.
and that one,
Okay.
like very topical today with like AI and everything like that. Like it's such a good story. Um and like all of his, they're all kind of equal to me, but like I said, Billy Bat I kind of lean towards the most just because I love the combination of conspiracy theories and everything.
That's the only one I haven't read because it wasn't translated when I was really reading his stuff a lot. So I'm
Uh-huh.
pumped that they're finally bringing it because maybe it's done. Maybe they were waiting for it to be finished before they published it.
Yeah, I don't know. So cuz I read, like I don't speak Japanese very well. So I read all like a fan translation online, and then I posted reviews, and one of the publishers, let me grab it.
Oh, they actually use your review because that'd be sick.
Yeah, so like one of the recent publishers that's doing the American one, they sent me like a proof of it.
Oh,
Um,
really?
and yeah, and I actually just got another email saying like, "Hey, we saw your review of Billy Bat, and we're like doing the English publication." I'm like, "I've already got the first one, but if you have the second one and all that, because I think it'll be kind of like how they're doing with Kingdom, where they'll probably publish them like every month or stuff like that." But oh, it's one that I want all in physical to go and reread again, and I'm not a big rereader, but it is just so much fun.
Okay, that's awesome. Yeah, the only place I've seen it in the wild was when I went to France. They
Oh,
had it
that's cool.
translated into French. Yeah, France gets more like seinen, like serious manga translated than we do.
Uh-huh.
We get more of like the younger stuff.
Yeah.
So it was cool to see how much bigger of a selection that they had over there of like all this serious stuff I'd never heard of before. So I'll send you some other ones to look into that are
Oh, I'd love
cyberpunk
that.
that I think you'll dig. Yeah, there's one called Eden. It's an endless world. The art, it's amazing. But you can only find like the English ones. They're really expensive on eBay. Otherwise, you have to go find them in like online and stuff. So
Huh.
sadly, they were out of print, and so the prices on them are just dumb
Oh,
reseller
yeah.
prices now. Uh, so you said, your cover artist is your wife. So tell me about that, collaboration process. Cause I remember seeing your covers. And then when we went to
Mhm.
Worldcon, I found out she was your cover artist. And I'm like, I was blown away because the covers
Uh-huh.
are really, really cool. So
Yeah, and that's one of the interesting things as, being an independent author is gauging how much you wanna spend on a cover because, it determines so much. It is the most upfront advertisement. So, when before people see the covers and I tell them that she's my cover artist, I feel like a lot of people might be like, "Oh, like, you're just going the cheap route." Like, that is her profession. Um
yeah, no, she's really good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and so when we started dating, she was going to BYU, which is one of the biggest schools to funnel into Pixar, and she really wanted to be like a color key designer because she's really good with colors and lighting and stuff like that. Um, but just didn't like the, super high intensity of animation studios. And when I started writing, she said that she'd do my cover. And that kind of led her to where she is now today, where she has an agent that gets her book cover deals. So she's done a bunch. Um, Oddly enough, a lot of like foreign ones. So we have a bunch at our house that are like in German and French that she did the covers of. It's kind of cool to have, but
That's cool. Yeah.
we haven't read them. So it's really fun because like the book one, my very first one, I gave her complete creative freedom. Um, because of course I come with kind of a concept of what I want, but knowing that she's also a cover artist by profession, she knows kind of what helps with marketing, what's selling, things like that. Book two of my fantasy series, she kind of had I had an idea of a scene that I wanted, and then we went kind of back to like giving her whatever she wanted with Two Sucker. And this one was really fun because she ideally loves doing like YA book covers for young girls, and this is not that kind of
No,
cover.
not at all.
Um, so I was pretty surprised when she wanted to do it, and it's super fun. And um, then book two and Toothsucker, we've just kind of gone by. I give her after we did book one, I'm like, okay, here's the character, and we kind of have the aesthetic. Whereas here's a character, they've got an interesting thing going on, and then book three is the same. It's going to have a different character that's kind of more in the forefront of that book, and it's going to be green. Just doing vibrant colors is really kind of fun and eye catching, and so it's nice that I don't have to send emails back and forth saying like, "Oh, I like this. Here's critique and that." Where I'm very lucky to see the whole process, and the only payment I have to give is just being a good husband.
That's good. And then is she doing, the end to end on it? Like she's doing the typeface and the font and all that stuff too, or is she just doing the illustration?
Yeah, so she does the font and everything like that. And like when we did the Kickstarters for the deluxe edition, she made all the graphics and things like that. Like she's made um for my fantasy stuff, she's done the sigils. We have a couple internal illustrations in those. So all of the stuff she kind of helps take care of, which is just a huge relief on my part. And then, when we get to formatting, I'll be like, "Okay, here's the templates for Ingram, for KDP, and all that stuff," and she just does it for me.
Dude, that is awesome. That is a
Yeah,
fantastic thing to have in-house.
yeah, it's a big relief off my back.
So getting into I wanna get into, like, the plot and the synopsis for Two Suckers. So who's the character on the cover of the first book, and what's the story?
Uh-huh. So this is Petya. Um, when I was writing this, so my wife's from Russia. One of her best friends and her husband were coming to the US, trying to come. Long story short, they were in detainment for like a year plus and
Oh,
weren't
wow.
able to come here. So a lot of this is like a refugee story. But the idea is he is from what is in that kind of future, Yugoslavia, that kind of part of the world. And so he's fleeing war to come to what is kind of that time's equivalent to United States. And as a refugee, he has no money, nothing. So he sells himself to medical research. And like my background, I'm a nurse during my day job, so kind of put some of that in there. And at this time in the world, there is a disease called tech bone that causes certain people with cybernetic implants, which is a big part of cyberpunk, to have basically their bones start to dissolve. So
Oh,
he
wow.
offers himself to become a test subject for a shady company. Um, to try to find a cure. And because everybody in this world is racing for a cure, the government is literally corporations. So the president in the series at the time is the CEO of a company that has the current best cure for this disease. Um, and during his medical trials, he's given this device that causes a crazy surge for the need of calcium, and that leads to a hunger for teeth. And so that's kind of how it begins.
Oh, that's fascinating. I wow, okay. I love that whole thing. So then,
Mhm.
without giving too much away, can you give me the same spiel on the second one with the character and some of the story?
Yeah. So in book one, you also meet Naoma. She is essentially a corrupt K-pop idol that's a head front of a corporation. Um, and she comes into play more in this one. And book one is a lot about kind of working with the presidential corporations that are going trying to fight for control for the cure to this disease. Book two goes into a little more of a supernatural thing that we discover in book one. But that one is a lot more on what you could call kind of that world's Disney that is doing something nefarious with their entertainment control. So, book one, a lot about medical and pharmaceutical commentary. Book two is a lot about entertainment used for control and propaganda and things like that.
Oh, okay. Oh, those are both fascinating and very in the genre. I think sometimes with cyberpunk, it's just sci-fi with the name slapped on. Those are very much in the genre of
Mhm.
cyberpunk. So that's really cool.
Yeah.
Where did the obviously the medical background I'm sure influenced you, but the idea of having the bone dissolving disease and having to, eat the teeth, where it was there a moment when you thought of that? Where did that come from? Because it's
Uh-huh.
fascinating to me.
So it goes back to that short story I mentioned at the start of my career where it was basically a play on the tooth fairy. It's about they were these vampires that instead of drinking blood, they ate teeth as like a play on the tooth fairy, like I said. And that was pretty easy to translate into fantasy, but as sci-fi, I needed a reason to have that. And so the idea came of okay, a cybernetic implant that causes a hunger for teeth. Why would that make any sense? Okay, bones are dissolving and it's a chase for that calcium, and it just led into that.
Okay. I love that. Yeah, that's really oh man, it's just such a cool concept. And I love how those things come together. When you talked about, you mentioned career and you mentioned getting into it. What made you decide to go the self-published route, or did you do the query letter rejection ringer like most of us have done beforehand?
Uh-huh. So I don't know if you've heard of the 11th cycle. Um Keon
Oh,
Arledon
yeah, yeah.
is, like, the author's name. What happened is I had written all of my first book, and at that time, I only really knew about traditional publishing, and I think I kinda had the idea that everyone else did that, self-publishing is what people do if they can't get published. Um, but I saw how like, the 11th cycle marketing was going and got into a conversation with the author, and he was nice enough to do just, like we did, like, a 2-hour Zoom call, where I asked essentially, "I've got the book, what do I do next?" And he asked me like, "Oh, are you gonna do traditional or self-published?" I'm like, "Oh, traditional." And then he kind of was like, "Here's why I did self-published." And long story short, I love the idea of it. I am a pretty impatient person, so I wanted to get my books out there. Um, and so that's what I did. I just kind of dove right into it. Toothsucker, I queried for like maybe a month just to see if anything would happen. Um, but fortunately, since publishing Toothsucker, it's done a lot better than my other books, and I've kind of figured out the business side a little more. And especially with that series, what I love is just being able to have complete control, be able to publish just like that, where, like I published Chromatic Creep earlier this year. I'm going to publish book 3 later this year. Um, just because, once I have it done, I have my editor go through it and I don't have any publisher schedule that I have to adhere to. I just do it when I want. Um, I mean, but that's not to say that I won't try to get something traditional in the future. I don't think I'd ever go fully traditional, but I would like to kind of have my foot in both pools to kind of just see how it is. But that's kind of why I ended up going indie.
Yeah, I see that more and more because, like, I feel like all authors are a little bit of control freaks about this stuff because you put so much effort into
Oh yeah.
making it, and so it's like knowing, like, oh, I can put it out whenever I want, and I get to choose my cover, and yeah, it there's a lot of positives. So I totally get that. Um, how many? How much you said you did it for a month? Do you remember about how many people you had reached out to with Two Sucker when you queried?
Um, honestly, I probably did about like 5 to 10 agents.
Oh,
Didn't
okay. So
have
not a ton.
yeah, not a ton. Like I pretty much just had that going while I was having maybe some like my beta readers go through it, and I'd even mentioned it to my editor. Like I really didn't have any high hopes for it. Whereas I mean with Pokemon, I wrote a novel and I finished it earlier this year, I think, or no, maybe like in December. That's essentially Pokemon meets the Greenbone Saga. And then for people that don't know that, I just say it's Pokemon meets the Godfather that I am currently querying. And that one, I took kind of a different approach. So I went to some, reputable agents, but this one I really tried to kind of use my trad friends to get referrals. I haven't had anything really go yet, and I've got a couple more things I'm going to try. But at this point, I'm really just kind of setting things up where I'm like, okay, I've got some cool ideas for marketing that I'm just gonna indie publish it unless something really promising comes. Yeah, and so that one I tried a little more. But it's not the most devastating if I don't get it trad
Yeah.
published because I think it will sell. And I think that a lot of people are really big on Pokemon, of course, and then the nostalgia of it. So I feel like that one I won't have trouble selling, especially now that I have more books out there and kind of have a bit of a reputation.
Yeah, yeah, no, I feel like your marketing, is really good, especially on Instagram. I even reached out to you a long time ago asking, like, what you did, and,
Hmm.
I'm finally now implementing some of the some of the
Yeah.
things you told me, like, 2 years ago. Are you able to share, like, the synopsis on the Pokemon meets Godfather book, or is it still kinda under wraps?
Oh yeah, like completely. So it plays a lot also on the huge surge in Pokemon cards being like insanely hard to get today and just
Oh, okay,
being a,
nice.
a big thing. But essentially in this world you have people that have the cards of these creatures on their chest. They're just like hanging from a chain. And when they tap them, it like summons it. And these are used like all over, like everybody gets one at age 12. And it just kind of help them in life, clean the house, do their job, whatever. But it focuses on kind of like a Ryland Grace-esque teacher that works at a therapeutic school. So he helps kids, but also these are troubled kids. And his creature is able to kind of correct, um, work its way into troubled kids' minds to kind of untangle problems in there. Um, the book starts off with him having a kid that is just going like completely nuts. So the teachers call him in to kind of have an emergency intervene. Um, and his creature completely wrecks the kid's mind, like breaks him, makes him a vegetable. And so it causes a big moral dilemma where he's kind of taken into prison. He well, like a temporary just holding cell at police station while they try to figure out like was this intentional, what happened. And a guy comes to him and says, hey, I'll erase all of your criminal record and all your problems, but I need you to come and do a favor for me. And essentially this guy works for one of the town's four mafia families, and he needs him to do a hit on another mafia family's leader. And it all takes place in a New York-ish area, but each family is kind of influenced by a different mob nationality. So you have like the Americans, because they all have different names, are focused on gun trading. This guy works for a um, essentially like the Russian mafia, and they are big over what do I even have them over? Oh, like property management and corruption stuff through that. And then, like you've got another that's on creature modification, another that's on kind of like the sex trade and things like that. And so it's just all of these things, but you still kind of have a spirit of Pokemon, but it's also the big crime family drama of the big idea that I went off of was a normal, very moral guy is brought into this by unfortunate circumstances and is uncomfortable with what he has to do, but he's also trying to like remain moral while not getting himself killed.
Okay, that's awesome. Is
Mhm.
there a timeline you've put for yourself on when you would indie publish that versus traditional? Like, are you like, I'm going to try X amount of things and wait X amount of time?
Yeah, I was kind of looking to this summer, which, time is coming. I've given it maybe at this point it'll probably be like 6 months. So, I don't want to do the like whole years of it where I just let it sit there and ferment. And that if I do get like let's say indie publishes and does really well and somebody wants to buy it, sure, whatever. Um like I said, I have two agent referrals that I'm kind of waiting on. If those don't go anywhere, I'm just going to indie publish it. And now I've started kind of make plans because I'm like, I don't feel like it'll happen. Um, and I know a lot of people that are really excited for it. Most of that was due to when I was writing it to kind of attract attention and keep myself accountable. I did, like day one of writing my Pokemon meets the Godfather novel, and I don't know if you saw this, but I did a reel every day until it was finished. Took me 77 days,
Wow.
and then I even today I still get people asking like, "When's the Pokemon Godfather book coming out?" And I just kind of want to get it out there. Um, and so yeah, hopefully it does get success, however it happens. I mean, and like I said, I'm pretty impatient. So the other thing with the agent, if I get one, book will probably end up coming out in 2028. Whereas if I indie publish it, I'll probably launch it later this year, um, and just send it to my editor right after she finishes Toothsucker Book 3.
Okay. Do you already have an idea of the cover you want to be
No.
done?
Yeah, that one I don't.
That's a hard cover to think of.
Yeah, and the good thing is that my wife's read it. So she reads all of my books before she does the cover. Um, and once she starts on a cover, she can get it out pretty quickly. But I think that, if I make the decision to self-publish it, we'll just start right away and get on it. And I'm not the most strict with timelines. Maybe that's not the smartest thing for publishing sake. Like by a business standard, it might not be the smartest thing to publish two books 1 month after the other, but that's probably what'll happen if this comes out. Because I am more of the mentality of I don't plan on having the biggest like first day sales. I just want the book out there to start getting attention. Um, and I feel like people that want To Sucker 3 will read it right when it comes out because they love the series anyways, and people that want to try something new will try that, and we'll just kind of see how it goes. I just want to get as many books out there to get people to start coming to my other stuff and, hopefully just get to the backlog when that time comes.
Okay. Yeah, I totally get that. I have sort of a similar thought, partly because I'm not good at pre-launch stuff. I'm
Yeah.
just with life and the way I know your job, you probably work crazy weird hours. So it's hard to for me to put those together. So I totally get where you're coming from, especially with how active you are on social media. Cause like you said, even if it's not day one, you're gonna be so active getting that content on social media that to me, it's like people are going to hear about that book and start looking into it. That's my assumption, at least. But
Oh yeah, and like I mean, I'll look at some authors that, day one super big stuff, but it's not super common where you look at like some of the biggest indie successes, like Ryan Cahill started to get his crazy big following around when like book 3 came out. Dungeon Crawler Carl earlier had a bigger following, but it didn't get the insane boom that it has until like maybe like book 5 or 6. And then,
yeah,
like when book 7 came out, you kind of have the cult following you do now. And so I just feel like, get it out there when it is. And if there is a certain reader that takes it to the next level by making everyone read it, it can happen anytime. It won't necessarily happen on day one.
okay. With the type of story that Pokemon one is, would you ever consider putting it on Royal Road, like releasing it in chapters on Royal Road? Because it that story feels very like accepted by that reader group.
Yeah. I've considered it. I did do Toothsucker on Royal Road. Um, not the entire thing. I
Hmm.
did maybe the first like 10 chapters or so. But just stopped because I wasn't getting a lot of biting, just to experiment with it. To see if it would give a bigger following. But it's like definitely something I could try. Um, because some people's complete success comes from that, but I don't know. Yeah, I think that if I don't get an agent soon enough, like it's a good idea. Like there's nothing lost in doing it. And I feel like that's what most of my author career is at this point is I'm just trying to throw everything at the wall and see what sticks.
Yeah, I mean that's the nature of it, especially when you're indie. You just have to try it all. Are
Mhm.
you on Kindle Unlimited with your books? Are you wide?
Uh-huh. My fantasy ones I am on Kindle Unlimited. I'm wide with Toothsucker because I did something with a company where they kind of did some like art for it and stuff like that. Um and at this point, I I've just kind of stuck to doing wide because I never had a lot of good Kindle Unlimited reads with my fantasy stuff. Like even today, when people buy those, it just tends to be bought rather than a lot of KU reads, and I've just never been a huge fan of it. I know that some people that is like their number one selling thing, but for me, it's like I just have better success doing normal ebook sales.
Okay. Yeah, I've been that way. I'm just now trying Kindle Unlimited to see kind of how it
Mhm.
works. But the reason I brought it up is that if you're not on Kindle Unlimited, you can put it, there and Royal Road, so you can kind of try them both at the same time. As long as like, because Kindle's rule is like if we're gonna have Kindle Unlimited, we have to be like ebook exclusive or whatever. But yes,
Yeah.
you could do it for both of that one. I just think the video gamey storyline is very like that's how those people, their reader
100%.
group is into that kind of stuff. So
Uh-huh.
yeah, I've done a little bit of railroad and I haven't seen like a ton of success, but I
Mhm.
realize too what I've put out isn't totally in like the vein of the readership there. So
Mhm. And that's one that, like, I think in the future I could see myself maybe trying Lit RPG just because, it's having such a surge right now. And in that case, I definitely would put it on there. Um, but like this one, I feel exactly like you were kind of saying. It isn't Lit RPG, but it definitely appeals to the gamer crowd. With all the Pokemon aspects, and that was kind of the big selling point in a lot of my query letters too, is like hoping that people are like, okay, Pokemon's having a huge surge right now. The cards are like bigger than ever. And so that's why I'm not really worried if I don't get a trad deal. I think that it'll find its crowd. Um, and the more that I kind of ruminate on these things, I'm getting just kind of impatient where I'm like, okay, I want those agents to respond. Just tell me no right away so that I can get it
yeah,
out there. Because of course, rejection doesn't feel great, but now I'm at the point where I'm really excited to just get it out there because I think I have some really good ideas for personal marketing. Um, and I just feel like this one it'll hit a lot wider. With my fantasy series, it's pretty complex and it's a little obscure. Two Sucker, when it finds its audience, it does really well, but it is a jarring cover. And, I'm a big person on I don't like vanilla stories, but some people just like they want their cozy fantasy and just dragon riders. That's it. And this isn't that in any way. Um, Whereas, Pokemon hits such a big wide audience that I feel like it'll do pretty well.
yeah, I get that. I'm the same way. I don't really write in a lot of the tropes of fantasy that seem to be very popular, so I'm
Mhm.
cursed in the same way. So to find a
Yeah.
trope like a Pokemon or a genre like that that can work for you, that's good. I'm glad you found that. I totally get it. So
Well, yeah, and it's the same way that I am as a reader. And it's just like, and nothing against people that like Dragon Rider books or Dragon Rider authors, but I'm like, this is to me, if a book is pitched as Dragon Rider, that sounds like the most boring thing to me ever because there have been so many stories like that. Like, you tell me this is a cozy fantasy about Dragon Riders, like, I would rather read a textbook. Like, I don't want that. And when I get a really weird idea, I'm so in. So like while I was writing Two Sucker, I was going into a lot of authors like Jeff Vandermeer, China Miéville that are known as like weird fiction just because I love new ideas, new concepts, things that are so outside of the box. But at the same time, I recognize that there is a vast amount of the reading audience that doesn't want that. They just want stories they know they'll like rather than experimenting with weird things.
yeah, yeah, that's very fair. And an interesting point. Do you have any other? So you've got the Pokemon Godfather, you've got more Two Sucker. Do you have any other projects that are cooking in the background right now?
Yeah, so I am uh I'm the type of author that loves drafting. I love the creation of the story. I hate editing. Um Mostly because I don't like reading my own stuff because it feels like I'm listening to myself talk. Um
Oh,
with
okay.
audiobooks, when I have to go back and review them, like the audiobook for Toothsucker, I love my fantasy stuff too, but like my narrator for Toothsucker is so good. And in book two that he's recording right now, he's putting in sound effects. It is so awesome. But I'm not one of those people that's like, I love hearing my book come to life. Like, I need to be playing video games or doing something to distract me because it's very awkward and uncomfortable to me. Um, and so that same kind of thing comes when I'm doing, I guess, second draft isn't too bad. But whenever I send my stuff to my agent, like I'm always so nervous that there's going to be so much construction work that needs to be done. Like my very first book took me about as like it was like a year to write, maybe 9 months to write, and then like 13 months to edit. Like
Wow.
the book was twice as long, would say twice as long, twice as bad. it was such a big learning process. Whereas like my second fantasy book, she suggested adding a chapter, and both two sucker books, she loved them so much, and it was just line and copy edits. And I'm kind of hoping that's just what book three ends up being, where it's like a nice quick turnaround. Um, but to get back to your question, um, so while like I've got the Pokemon Godfather one is currently in the query slash beta reader phase. Tooth Sucker 3 is in my editor's hands. I need something to kind of occupy myself. So I'm writing one that's I wanted to take, like I said, I'm not a big trope person, but I am a sucker for first contact stories and school settings. So like I wanted to do something that was first contact mixed with a school. And so this one is kind of like Jujutsu Kaisen slash Harry Potter meets Neon Genesis Evangelion.
Okay.
So I'm maybe about 40,000 words into that one. And this one, um, it's different. So I think it can appeal to certain people, but there are certain aspects that I think that people really won't like. Um, Maybe I'll query it, but this one I'm pretty much just planning on self-publishing. Uh, And it was just one of those where the same with the Pokemon Godfather one, I just got an itch and really wanted to write it. Um, and my number one priority though is Toothsucker Book 4, but I don't want to start on that until I finish until I see like the complete final edits for book 3 to know that like if there's a certain thing that'll affect the plot of the last book. Besides that, I just finished a short story for an anthology and I'm writing one more. Um, but aside from that, I am just planning on finishing what I'm on now and then going to Sucker Book 4.
Okay. So aside from like a million projects, I'm
Yeah.
excited for you, dude. I wish I could get that much done. It's awesome. So clearly you're prolific, you're getting a lot of stuff out. What is your writing process? Are you a sit down and get after it? Are you doing it in sprints? How does it work for you?
Typically in sprints. So still working a full-time job. So I try to get 1,000 words in a day. And how I typically end up doing that is I'll arrive to work a little earlier, and I've got a Bluetooth keyboard for my phone, and I will try to get about like 300-ish words in there. Then on my work break, 15 minutes of kind of the same, so that when I get home, I don't have to be just writing and then have it be like that is my entire life. Because you know, I want to spend time with the wife, spend time with friends. So most days it's typically that where I'll do a lot of on my phone. Same like I'll take public transportation, so I just write on there. And I've gotten really comfortable at writing a lot on my phone and then just fixing it later. Um, so I'll typically get, I would say most days it's like I'll get 700 words done at work, finish with 300 at home, and then days off. I'll try to handle the business and do more. Um, and then editing, all of my like word count goals kind of go out the door. If I've got a manuscript I'm finishing, it's just focusing on that, getting as much in as I can. Um, Besides that, it's try to get 1,000 words a day, days off, try to get to like 1,500 or whatever. Um, but like as a very OCD person that needs like certain things done, it's just like I don't feel comfortable until I've done 1,000 words a day. Of course, like on vacations and stuff like that, it'll kind of change, but it's almost always 1,000 words a day. Then I can relax. If I have more time, I'll do some more. Or like the short stories that I've been doing, those will typically come like second priority. So I finish my 1,000 words for the day, then go to those and do those because unless they have a deadline that's really close, I'll just kind of do them when I can.
Okay. Um Oh man, take a second here. I had a follow up. The program. What program are you using when you're doing the typing on your phone? Is it Microsoft Word? Is it something else? Are you
It's Google
transferring
Docs.
it back and forth? Google Docs. Okay, old school.
So
I love it.
yeah, and that's the thing that when I first started, I didn't have a Mac. I do now, and I've heard a lot of people like Scrivener, but what I love so much is just how easy it is to open the Google Docs app. And I know, yes, pros and cons about having everything in the cloud. I do try to download things every now and then, just in case anything were to happen. But I love how convenient it is to like type on my phone, get home, open up Google Docs, and it's already there. Don't need to do any kind of transfers and stuff like that. And it's the same thing with like my notes. Like my personal wiki is so messy. It is literally just a big Google document with random notes scattered all over. And every now and then I'll go tidy it up, but that's yeah, I just use Google Docs and then I use Atticus for formatting when the book's like finally complete.
Oh, okay. Does it takes your Google Doc and puts it in like a Word or PDF file you can put on Amazon? Okay. I haven't messed
Yeah.
with that one because I just use Microsoft Word pretty much in the same way that you use Google Docs.
Hmm.
I have like an old license I've hung on to so I don't have to go to 365.
That's so nice.
Yeah, 365 is so bad. So I've been hanging on to my like God, is it I think it's like the 2007 or something license of Word that I've just been hanging on to.
And that's like one of my
So,
biggest things is that Google Docs is free
yep.
and I'm a pretty cheap person, so it's just like it works. When you start to get into really long books, like this one's like 160K, I think. So that when I got to like page 500 of Google Doc, it starts to get slower. It just takes a minute to kind of boot up. But honestly, like there aren't any big drawbacks that would ever make me think, oh, I really need a new program. And like I've tried out some of those author plotting programs and stuff to like organize and stuff. But at the end of the day, it's just so easy to open a different Google Doc, put in the information there. And if, I'd love to be more organized, but for the time being, it kind of does what I need.
Nice. Do you do you plot out a lot of it outlining in Google Docs? Is that where most of it lives, or are you a guy that kind of keeps it more in your head and there's like a little bit on Google Docs? How does the outlining process work for you?
Yeah, it's pretty much so I'm a big like skeleton writer. So I do typically know like the book that I'm writing right now, the like First Contact Academy one is I really don't know how it's going to end. This one I'm really kind of pantsing, but I have the next few like chapter points outlined, where it's just like a kind of a bulleted list, like this happens, this happens, this happens. And typically what happens is I'll either have the actual document at the bottom or like for my Tootsucker ones, I'll kind of write an outline in the like Tootsucker wiki that I made where it'll just be like, okay, here's this chapter, this is what's gonna happen. Chapter here. Um, and most of the time that kind of gets messed up. That's why I've never been a huge outliner because I I do outline, but I mean like I've never been a person that'll like write out like, a 60-page document of outline because most of my best inspiration comes moment of and I've kind of battled with this because I'm like I love when you see like big plots come to a big payoff and I'm like that has to be plotted out so much. But then like this book once I started to see things going, I kind of had this map out in my head and it was never like really crazy long thorough plotted out. It was just more like, okay, this is revealed and I slowly feel what's going on. Whereas if you read it, you might think like, oh, this is very intricately plotted out. But it's more so just kind of like in my mind, I knew what had to happen and what had to kind of be revealed slash hinted at earlier on. And it worked for me. Um, and so I just kind of do that, whatever feels the most comfortable. Um, I I don't want to go make a big outline and have it be a huge waste of time because I have an inspiration that takes it somewhere else while writing it.
Okay. I totally understand that. I'm kind of a similar outliner myself. So finishing up here, where can people find you and find your stuff to get copies of your very zany and awesome tooth eating vampire series over there?
Uh-huh. So you can just look me up on Instagram, Kaden Love Author _. That's my big social media. Um, I am pretty much anywhere books are sold. You can order them in through anything. But Amazon's pretty easy. All of my audiobooks are on Audible. Um, Elegy is actually the whole audiobook's free on YouTube.
Oh,
And
cool. Nice.
yeah, I'm most active on Instagram, even though I am on like TikTok. Um, I'm on Instagram, find my books wherever, and I'll just keep writing more.
Okay, love it. Well, I appreciate you coming on, and, when your next, Two Sucker or the Pokemon Godfather book drop, I gotta have you back on, so
Sweet, I'm down.
alright, man. I'll see you later.